I loved that year because of that storyline. I do think it's one of the best of all time. And that's what's cool about SummerSlam is they build a series of matches for the Hart Foundation where every member has a match and those matches have stakes. But the one I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is Owen Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin for the Intercontinental title. The idea was, if I don't win, I'll kiss your ass. So now Stone Cold, now that he's uttered that, the Stone Cold character would never kiss Owen's ass. He can't possibly do that. Disaster strikes in the middle of the match. There's a tombstone pile driver that happens. Austin says he believes that Owen was going to go to his knees. That's the way most people do the tombstone pile driver. But Owen went to his butt, and he says he's done this before, and disaster strikes. All of a sudden, Austin can't move. He can't feel his extremities, and they have a bowling shoe ugly finish, but Owen does a little bit of stalling. They get it done. So the stip is secure. Austin's the Intercontinental Champion. He will not have to kiss Owen's ass, but he's going to need help walking to the backstage area because, man, he is not good physically. And we know the damage this does to his neck. This becomes a sore subject for Austin for the rest of his career. We know a few years after this, he winds up having to have major neck surgery done. And unfortunately, we lost Owen. Where was the locker room on this? When you see a guy get hot like this, and one of the more beloved figures in the locker room, as I understand it, Owen Hart, he's the guy who hurt somebody. Clearly, it wasn't done intentionally. But, man, this is just a bad situation all around. What do you remember the reaction being from the locker room? Was there heat on Owen for this is what I'm trying to ask, I guess.
No, there wasn't. There was no heat on Owen. Zero. From anybody that – and I was in the locker room. There wasn't. It was a mistake. It was something that shouldn't have been done. There's no doubt about it. Scott Steiner used to do this. He'd turn the guy up for the suplex and then he'd spin him like that and catch him like that. The difference is Scott Steiner could bench press 600 pounds and could hold a guy that very safely. That's why Scott could do all these crazy suplexes. He was incredibly safe. Not that Owen wasn't safe, but you've got a guy with Steve that's so big and so unwieldy. And Owen is, not this massive big guy that can control him. You saw that Steve's head was sticking out a couple inches beneath Owen's legs. I mean, Steve's lucky he's able to walk. He's not a paraplegic. I mean, that was a disaster, absolute disaster. The move should have never been done. It's easy to look in hindsight and say that shouldn't have been done, but I think at the time we saw it and thought that shouldn't have been done. I mean, that was something that not only did you almost kill our meal ticket in Stone Cold, you almost paralyzed our friend in Stone Cold. That was an absolute disaster. It's something that should have never happened in a match.
I do want to ask you about, the wrestler protocol, I guess, or the best practice for wrestlers. I'm not a wrestler. What the fuck do I know? But I've heard through the years that when something happens, because I want to be clear, I don't think for a second that I would intentionally hurt Austin. But when an accident like this happens, it's sort of expected that the guy who injures the other guy, he calls to check on him. And Austin has said that, Owen never called to check on him. And it's been said that Owen was guilt-ridden and felt bad about it and just, couldn't face it. And that rubbed people the wrong way. But Martha published a book back in 2003 where she said that Owen insisted to her that he did the move correctly and Austin was faking it. And that is the first time I've ever heard of that before. It feels like Owen was in denial, or maybe Martha was misremembering. Because when you watch the video, it feels like when they land, Owen, and almost immediately he recognizes, something's wrong. Where do you land on that? Is it protocol? Is it a best practice to call and check on a guy? Why don't you think Owen did that? And what do you make of Martha's report that, Owen told me that he's fine and he's faking it? That feels weird to me.
Yeah, I got my leg broken when I was in college, really bad. They told me I never play football again. Broke the femur and tore all the ligaments across. Pierce Holt, who was a two-time All-Pro at San Francisco, was the one that broke it. And somehow he found my hospital room from San Angelo. I don't know how he did it. Was pretty cool. He called me. And I thought that was so cool. Obviously it was on accident. It ended up being, a two-time All-Pro, one of the greatest to ever play at San Angelo State. I always thought how cool that was, and I always kind of kept that as a template, on something like that. And it was standard. I say standard. There's no protocol for that. There's no protocol for breaking somebody's neck by accident. And I'll make sure by accident. Owen Hart was one of the best guys in the history of this business, and would never dream of hurting somebody on purpose. And it does kind of surprise me that he didn't call, but maybe he just didn't know what to say. I wasn't in his head, and I know Owen very, very well, very well. Owen was a wonderful human being. I mean, one of the best. Anybody who talks about Owen will tell you about how great of a human being Owen is. He used to have only carry-ons. That way he could get home to see his wife and kids quicker and wouldn't have to wait for baggage claim. That was literally the reason, just an extra 30 minutes to get home early. And a lot of it goes to his family. Owen was just a good dude. I heard that stuff about the book that his wife wrote. I don't understand any of it. And I'm certainly not going to dispute what she wrote. I don't think she would put something there that knowingly she thought was false. But I never saw that from Owen as far as, Steve faking it. That was not within the realm of possibility at all. You look at the tape. Steve's lucky. Yeah. Steve's lucky to walk. I mean, his head was sticking out between Owen's legs. Steve's, my God, man, Stone Cold is lucky not to be in a wheelchair because of that. And the fact that he came back and became, this incredible star after it, an even bigger star. Steve was very lucky. But as far as not calling, I don't know. I would thought that Owen would have, but Owen obviously had some reason that he didn't, and maybe it was because he was guilt-ridden. And I will give Owen Hart the benefit of the doubt 10 times out of 10 because I know what a wonderful person Owen Hart is. I know Steve later had a problem with the "You Broke My Neck" T-shirt because they didn't clear that with him, and I think he had a little bit of a problem with that. But that had nothing to do with Owen. That had to do with creative.
By the way, I know that Steve, it's different when it's about you, and I get that. I don't think for a second it was intentional. But when I saw the Owen 316 says, "I just broke your neck" shirt, I just thought, oh, they're just doing the old "I broke Wahoo's leg" T-shirt, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the idea. The problem was they didn't clear it with Steve, which, again, is just a phone call. And that's not on Owen, by the way. That's on WWE. That's not on Owen. I mean, they gave Owen a shirt to wear out there. That's not on Owen. That's on WWE. Somebody from WWE should have called Steve to at least make sure Steve didn't have a problem with it, or at least let him know it was coming. Steve's a worker. He understands all that. I think when Steve, sits at home and he's got this broken neck, he went from being perhaps going to become the hottest guy in the business. I don't think he could foresee him becoming the biggest draw of all time. Maybe he did. If he did, he's freaking Nostradamus. But none of we thought he was going to be hot. We didn't realize how hot he's going to be. I think him sitting at home and he's hurt. All of a sudden he sees this shirt. He got mad about it, and don't blame him. That was a call that should have been made from WWE. That had nothing to do with Owen. That is something that should have happened from WWE.
I wanted to ask you about that because, I do feel like Jeff Jarrett's on to something. He said on his podcast a few times that all the problems he had through his career with his dad or with Vince McMahon or with Dixie Carter or with TNA or at any level, it could all be traced back to one thing: lack of communication. And his best practice now is, hey man, over communicate. And it seems like in both cases, what we're talking about with Owen and the accident and then the T-shirt, man, with a little more communication, all of this goes away, right?
100%. 100%. I mean, Owen Hart, if he were alive today, I think he would feel bad that people are questioning why he didn't call. Because, again, I give Owen the benefit of the doubt 10 times out of 10. I know what a wonderful person Owen Hart was. And Owen Hart apparently, whatever was said about it, he was too grief-stricken to call. I believe that. I have no issue with that. But if Owen just calls, all this is remedied. If Vince or Bruce or somebody calls about the T-shirt that I just broke your neck, all of this is taken care of. This is 2 phone calls away from not having any issue to talk about, almost 30 years later. So yes, it's all about communication.